My name's Rob Whiteman. I've been a teacher for 9 years. I teach Spanish and French, Spanish up to A-level at Charter School in Berkshire and French at Key Stage 3. I come from a background of having been a journalist for 15 years, both working for trade magazines and as a freelance, specialising in sport and travel. Spanish is my principal non-native language. I studied Spanish and French at university. I spent my year abroad in Spain, in actual fact, and then a month in France. So my Spanish overtook my French a little, although I still holiday in France a great deal and still enjoy French. I also have a smattering of Italian, which was really useful for tourist purposes. I always enjoyed languages from a young age, and I found as soon as I went principally to France as a child, from the age of 11 or 12, that being able to communicate, even if it was just being able to ask directions or being able to order a sandwich or a drink, they were really useful, and I felt quite empowered by that. Some of my classmates weren't so keen to give it a go and didn't get as far as I did, but I felt that it was really empowering. And as soon as I got older and realised that it offered me the opportunity to travel, to understand different cultures, to meet lots of different people and to go to different places, enjoy different experiences, then it was something that just always kept on opening doors for me. Anything but teaching was my answer to that, which is why I've ended up as a teacher. I really wanted to avoid teaching for many years because both my parents are teachers and I have many other relatives who are teachers. And so I wanted to do something different. I wanted to cut my own niche into something, which I really found I did when I was a journalist and an editor, and I did a bit of translation as well, and I was an author. So by the time I felt I'd done all that, I did a bit of work at a university as a journalism tutor. That opened my eyes to the fact that teaching maybe wasn't such a bad thing after all, and I found I got a lot out of that. So it really dovetailed that I wanted to use my languages maybe more formally, more regularly through my work. And therefore, as I say, it dovetailed that I was able to develop teaching skills and put my language skills into good practice as well. It was an experience that helped me grow up a lot at a stage when I was early 20s I'd have been. Gave me a lot of independence. Things were very different then. There was we didn't have the beauty of the internet, for instance. We couldn't keep in touch with people on social media. So when I landed in Spain on my own, I was in Spain on my own, and my only way of getting in touch with back home was through a payphone. So the need to stand on my own 2 feet was really crucial, and you develop linguistic skills that way because you have to go and deal with things. You have to sort out accommodation, you have to order meals, you have to go and work out what you need in the supermarket, and a lot of things were you had to go and ask for things. I remember asking for chicken by weight. So you need to go and actually sort out which part of the chicken you want. And that was vocabulary I hadn't encountered before. So there were definitely experiences that I had that were fantastic. I did a lot of travelling around, getting to know the culture a great deal more. I found that I would eat food that I wouldn't have eaten before. Became very keen on seafood, for instance, which I'd always turned my nose up at before for some reason. It's very much part of the Spanish culture, especially some of the areas I visited, like Galicia in the northwest. So yeah, it opened my eyes to lots of things, and it also was the time that I spent a bit of time reflecting on what I wanted to do career-wise, and that was when I got really interested in journalism. I did a mini project on the way that the Spanish royal family are presented in different areas of the Spanish media as part of my university studies, and I found that increased my interest in the media. I got involved in that, thought about that a great deal more, and all the while I was developing linguistic skills on a formal level, but also an informal level, so I could sort of talk to lots of different types of people. Again, these were skills that were really useful when I went into work because I've had lots of different jobs in my time, from barman to editor to a head of the Spanish department here at Charter. So you encounter lots of different people through that. And so that ability to talk to different people, communicate on different levels is really essential. One of the things that the first jobs I did, I worked for a company that sent me out to the Middle East to do some work. I needed to go and do some reports on the telecommunications market in Jordan, which was something I didn't know a great deal about. I got sent in to interview, I was about 23, I think. I got sent in to interview groups of government telecommunications officials. So I sat there in their office, 4 of them, really experienced people, high up in their field, and I had to have the the skills and the temperament to deal with that and to be able to ask questions and deal with the fact that I was working in a different culture as well. And so the background of having spent a year abroad really helped me do that. In terms of the linguistic skills, when I was a freelance journalist for quite some number of years, about 10 years, I did a lot of work in football, interviewed a lot of Spanish-speaking footballers for clubs like Real Madrid, Manchester United, Chelsea. And so I used my linguistic skills for doing the interviews, then transcribing and translating the interviews into English. So it was something that it gave me a range of skills, both linguistic and non-linguistic, that would really stood me in good stead for the career I'd chosen. The ability to present yourself, to present ideas, really important. It's something that's a skill we work on hugely with our students. One of our things that we're trying to get our students to do is to send them out so that they're able to communicate meaningfully if they go abroad. Even if it's just ordering drinks or ordering a meal, that is meaningful communication. So there are those sorts of skills. The ability to handle large amounts of information and dissect it, work out what's important from it, and then relay it maybe in a simplified format to someone else who perhaps has spent less time looking at that field. So that's the sort of skill you develop. Equally, I think the ability to organise yourself for any job, any workplace, is really crucial. And the discipline that you get from things like sitting down, learning vocabulary, from giving yourself different skills, knowing that you've got different skills to cover, that sort of thing from your studies, I think can really be beneficial in the workplace, because it's all about time management and prioritisation. And those sort of soft skills that employers want, that are useful in any job. If you look at things like attention to detail, obviously report writing is an important part of what we do, whether that's for if we're just giving the parent some verbal or written feedback on a student, or we're giving the students themselves some feedback. Understanding your own use of language, and I think this is one of the things about learning a foreign language, is that it helps you understand your own language a great deal better. It develops your eye for detail, and it also makes you think about what is the appropriate register, the appropriate way to address different people. For instance, I would write different feedback for one of my sixth form students to the way I might write it for one of my year sevens, because they would have a different level of understanding of the English language and some of the terminology that's used with languages. So I think overall, my ability to communicate with lots of different types of people, sort of keep on going back to that, but that's such a key skill that you get out of language learning. I think anything from a few words right up to bilingualism can be useful. I don't know a great deal of German, but I can order things in a restaurant if I go there. I don't know much Italian, but I can get around. I can give a taxi driver the directions where we need to go. I can get train tickets, for instance. So right up to then in Spanish, I can read and write it to a high level. I can speak it to a high level. I can understand it to a high level. I read regularly in Spanish, read novels in Spanish all the time. All those things are useful to me. All those things are useful to other people. So I don't think that there is a finite level that you need to reach for it to be useful. Clearly, if you spend a lot of time in a country, you develop the more advanced linguistic skills, then you have a great deal more confidence, and you're going to be able to use those skills, those specific linguistic skills, say, in the workplace. But there are a lot of skills, as we mentioned before, that come from just from the act of language learning that will help you in the workplace as well. Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, I think the other thing is that I sometimes see myself as, when I speak another language, as almost playing a role. If I go into a French boulangerie, I almost get into the sort of repartee that they have. I walk in, bonjour madame, I'll say. I wouldn't walk into the English equivalent and say, good morning madam. But I would do that in France. The same in Spanish, that they're in those sort of scenarios. So yeah, it's definitely part of my personality, has been for a very long time. It's very ingrained for me. And also, if you look at yourself developmentally, the fact that I'm used to talking to people from different walks of life, different areas of the world, that's definitely much part of my personality as well. I have that flexibility and that kind of open-mindedness, I think. Do. I think the thing is you've got to look at what is appropriate for you. What we don't say as teachers is that you're all going to go to university, all going to go and live abroad, all going to work abroad. Often we find the students who do go to university are the ones who don't end up getting as many opportunities to go and live abroad as ones who don't. We find that we get students who come back and say, oh, I've got this chance to go and live in France and work. I wish I kept my French going. Equally, languages give you such a broad range of skills that if you keep yourself open-minded, you keep your options open, it's never going to detract from what you can offer an employer. It's never going to detract from your ability to develop skills in other areas of your studies. It's only going to add to them, only going to enhance them. It helps you get a different view of things, a different view of people. Maybe develop that little bit more empathy for the people around you, a bit more understanding. There's a lot of teamwork involved in languages. Yes, there's independent study, but there's a lot of teamwork as well that's involved. So, there are lots of good reasons that we could go through, including, how many millions of Spanish speakers there are worldwide, the fact that there are tens of millions in the United States alone, native speakers of Spanish. We could talk about, but you also look at the range of things. You look at what employers talk about. Employers, regularly the CBI and the British Council will release reports talking about the amount of money that's lost to British business, simply because they don't have often quite rudimentary, basic linguistic skills within their companies, particularly with small businesses. That's an opportunity for young people. That's an opportunity that's there to be exploited, that is there for people to gain from, to have positive outcomes from.